Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today we are doing another of the Halloween drawings and the second of our Halloween drawings, and also another of the redoing of a character from the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 mural that I wasn't the most satisfied with. So today we're doing Morrigan from Darkstalkers, and yeah, we're doing something a little bit more personalized this time in terms of the pose, because obviously last time in the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 mural we were kind of limited by space, and also, you know, had to adhere to a certain kind of shape and style. Again, also the general amount of space that was allocated on the page to each character was not hugely a large amount, so this time I've got something a little bit more, you know, personalized for the character, which obviously can fill the entire frame. But because of that, I feel like this is going to take about as long as the Ryu one, because the Ryu one was very, very long. There is leaf blowing going on out there, so yeah, you might be able to hear that. Hopefully you can't, because it is very loud for me, but hopefully you can't hear it at home. But yeah, so yeah, this, as I say, it might be long. Hopefully not. It may be quick. It's not going to be quick. It's going to be long. But just maybe it might not be as long as Ryu. But anyways, as I say, I will roll the intro and then I'll be able to show you some of the, you know, actual drawing that I've already done. Anyways, intro time. Yeah. So, as you can see, I've gone for something a little bit more aggressive in terms of what we're going for this. You can probably tell this is pretty clearly referenced. I did my best to try and make things a little bit more exaggerated, though. Obviously with this kind of knee here, this is obviously supposed to be coming forward, and then the foot coming back. This leg is more or less consistent, because this is where the other leg is resting. I tried to give this pose some kind of flow to it, so it flows along in this kind of rough arc here. Same with the wings. The wings kind of flow in this little arc, this kind of S shape that they go in. And I thought it might be fun to have her arm resting on a wing. It's not really a thing you see in any of Morrigan's normal poses. That, and also her hair is very long. Which is something which I kind of feel like I only just noticed. But yeah, I mean, in the games her hair normally goes down to the end of her back. Is normally how long it goes, so it's pretty long. But yeah, I mean, as I said, again, as you can tell, this is pretty obviously quite referenced. But yeah, can't show the reference. Deleted the reference already. Can't show the reference because of stock photo companies and the like. They're very litigious. So yeah, I'm generally being a little bit more cautious about this, but yeah. So as I say, this is going to be something a little bit more personalized for the character. I think I'm probably going to go for like a Halloween color or something on the background. I'm probably just going to go for a flat color. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I might throw a bat or two around the place, but nothing more than that. It's not going to be as intense in terms of the bats as obviously the Batman one. The Batman one is obviously going to have a lot of bats. This one, maybe a couple. But I think I'm probably just going to go for like a pink or something in the background, like a bright color in the background which contrasts the character. But obviously I'm going to be going for very exaggerated colors here. The hair is going to be very green. A lot of these parts, the leggings are also going to be very pink. So I'm going to maybe be exaggerating a little bit more than I did last time in the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 drawing. I never actually drew that in the base sketch. I didn't draw the pattern in on her leggings, but I'll do that at some other point. I'll do that as I'm going. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like yeah, as I said, this is a drawing which is a little bit more personalized to the character. But there are certain elements like these heels here which I might need to fix because the foot kind of, the way that the foot flows is a little weird there. Yeah, just thinking, is there elements here which I'll need to change? I could maybe change the face a little bit. The face isn't quite exactly what I want here. Yeah. I'm thinking that there's maybe an element or two here that I could change to maybe emphasize certain things. Again, a lot of my time here is going to be spent on the hair, because that is going to be the thing that is going to take the most time. Naturally, it always is. Because realistically speaking, the rest of her isn't all that detailed. I don't need to go into a huge amount of detail on the rest of it. Yeah, you can still see the kind of the shape of the belly button, because on this you should be able to. It's a whenever you have something so form-fitting, it generally would show that. That's just the thing. Because I remember looking this up, because I remember thinking to myself, you know, it's weird that all these characters have their belly buttons showing on all these costumes, but I was like, actually no, it should, because whenever it's that level of conforming, so on and so forth. Yeah, you know what the deal is. But yeah, as I say, sometimes you can get away with being a little bit over the top on a pose. I think I'm getting away with it this time. I think this is alright to me. But yeah, I always feel like I need to go over a few things whenever I start, but I feel like I've kind of covered everything. There aren't really any topics for this one, I suppose, so to speak, because like I don't really need to cover like a perspective thing or anything. Like there's some slight perspective here with this leg coming forward, and then with this hand coming forward. But largely here it's just kind of with the general pose is kind of the flow of things is kind of how I'm structuring this, of where the kind of flow line that kind of comes through a lot of these in these different shapes that kind of and these different kind of flowing perspectives that kind of go against each other and into each other and all this stuff. So obviously you've got the main body flow, and then there's the wing flow, and there's the arm flow. So which all kind of form their little S shapes in a sense. It's more of an L shape with the body, but yeah, this is the thing. I kind of struggle to come up with topics sometimes, because with the Batman one, I genuinely don't know what I'm going to topic that one, or what I'm going to put as the topic for that video. I haven't edited it yet. But yeah, I've spent 8 minutes rambling here, so I might begin. But yeah, I suppose maybe flow is what I'm going for here. Again, I'm getting to the point where I feel like maybe I'm going to abandon the topics altogether, because I don't really talk about them ever, really. I kind of cover the things that I'm doing, and sometimes it's not exactly how I roll with it. Like with the Ryu one, it was lighting. With the Batman one, I don't even know what I was really supposed to be talking about with that one. I think I'll probably figure it out afterwards. Yeah, with the Ryu one, it was lighting. With the Spider-Man 2099 one, it was perspective and foreshortening. With this one, I'm kind of not sure what this one's about. I'll maybe say flow, is how I'll say it. But yeah, yeah. Anyways, I'll start, and then I'll be back, maybe during, but probably after I'm done the details. But yeah, anyways, I'll begin. Okay, so that is our details done. Now, something which I need to address is the fact that this has been going on for 3 hours and I've only just done the details, meaning that yes, this is going to be one that is going to be stretched over multiple recordings. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop the recording after I'm done talking here, and then I will continue this on another day, which will probably not be soon. Hence why I'm doing this little bit of talking here, if only just to leave myself a few reminders. So specifically that I'm not going to obviously draw in the bats on the print, on the leggings. I'm going to do that in the colors, because what I want to do is I want to have it look like a print so that the lighting is affecting the primary legging color and not the back color, which will be a slightly darker color. Something which I maybe didn't get necessarily across earlier on is the fact that she's supposed to be floating, as she normally does. Hence why I have the arm resting on the wing. But yeah, the kind of like the original pose is a woman lying on a couch. So I altered that a little bit to kind of obviously give you more of a, because obviously if it was a couch you'd see a certain level of squish which would be around here, which would cover the most of the thigh. So I obviously had to change that so that you can see the full thing. But realistically speaking, there's still a little bit of kind of not quite perfect kind of when it comes to seeing the whole thigh. Obviously this one's coming forward. I obviously had to change this part here, the little bit of folding that happens there on the legging. But yeah, I will have to continue this another day because it took like an hour just doing the face. Doing the face alone was an hour, which is quite insane. I don't know why it is that these are taking so much longer recently, but yeah, anyways, this is one of the ones which is going to take quite a lot longer. But yeah, something which I need to make sure that I do is I need to make sure that I do the print properly. I feel like maybe there's something that I could do to emphasize the floating. Maybe I do like a layer of bats along here so that it's maybe not technically floating, but just so that it emphasizes the kind of position a little bit more. Maybe some bats here to emphasize where the foot is kind of leant up, and then some bats along here just to say like, oh, she's resting on them. Something like that that might kind of be fun, but also emphasize some of these things. Maybe I'll do something like that. But yeah, that I think covers the little things that I wanted to say. Yeah, I only hope that the next few of these that I do are not as difficult as this one. Yeah, I recognize that the bottom of her hair is supposed to be flat, but that's quite difficult to portray in a way that doesn't look kind of weird. So I decided, because it's going to be kind of flaying out, that it's kind of curled a little bit, that it's got that curled thing going on with it. Normally your hair would kind of fall like that. Either side it would kind of rest at the edges of her head, but the idea is that this hand is lifting some of that hair from this side, and then this side is obviously falling that way. These are little things which I didn't mention before, but it's an important part of the flow that I was mentioning before. Something also which is important to note, I suppose while I have you, is squish, which is something that should be happening here. I didn't do it here specifically because I intended on doing it afterwards. Is that you should be getting, on any sort of tight clothing, a tiny little bit of squish. It's going to happen, it happens to everybody, especially people who have like more sculpted waists and thighs. You're going to get a little bit of squish whenever you've got tight clothes, and this is obviously tight clothes. So there should be a little bit of squish. I even did it here on the breasts. There's a tiny little bit of squish. I did that because I knew I was going to forget it if I didn't. But I actually didn't forget it. I did forget to do it here though. But yeah, you should be seeing less squish here because things are a little less tight on this side. The leg here is being raised, so there should be a little bit more squish. But here, there should be a little bit. Enough to notice anyways. Not a huge amount because it's obviously not going to be quite as tight here, because here it's going to be a little bit more tight because obviously there's movement happening. But here it should be a little less tight, but you should still be able to clearly see some degree of squishing happening. But yeah, I think that kind of gives the impression I've gone a little too much in there. Yeah. See, this is the thing, on the body these days I tend to use thicker lines, so obviously you can see I've used very thin lines on the face and then around the neck and everything, but I've gone for very thick lines on most of the rest of the body. That's just the thing I've started doing now, especially on the outline. The outline is generally like quite thick, dark lines, but in a sense it can actually be hard to work with those, because sometimes you make a line too thick, it's not consistent anymore, or you make a line which doesn't quite conform to the ways you want it to, or things like that. Or again, consistency is the big one. So obviously on this thigh here it's quite dark, but then it gets a little less dark there. These are things which I'm not going to change, because if I'm going to be scrutinizing over these things, I am going to be here all day. And it's already the evening, but yeah, there was a few little things. I ended up having to take a break to have dinner and all this stuff, and then a myriad of little things which just ate into my time considerably as time went on. Meaning that, yeah, I just lost a ton of potential work time on this. I think technical difficulties, all sorts of myriad of problems which I don't necessarily want to get into. But anyways, that is our details done. I'll create the color folder. First one I always do is skin, so we'll just create that layer as well. Just create that, just so I remember where I'm starting from. But yeah, I'm obviously going to reintroduce myself sort of whenever I go into the next recording, so I suppose, yeah, and then I'll do the colors. So yeah, anyways, I'll be back. Okay, it is now several days later. By several I mean 2. So yeah, I watched the footage. I rewatched the last little bit of the footage because I had to remind myself. I knew it would happen, so it's a good thing I recorded that. So I need to make sure that I do the mats underneath her. That'll be a late effect. That'll be an effect which I basically do at the very end, because it'll take about 5 minutes. Again, I don't want to do quite as many bats as I did with Batman, obviously, because the bats aren't necessarily quite so relevant with Morrigan, because she's supposed to be a succubus, not a vampire, despite the fact that she had that print on her leggings. I'm not quite sure why that's there or why it's like that. It's a design choice, and I'm not fully certain of why. But, yeah, I also need to make sure whenever I'm doing the bat print that I draw it, or that I color it in and not draw it in, because there's no point doing the lines. And then, so what I'll have to do is I'll do the color for the leggings, and then I'll put a clipping mask on, then I'll color in the bats, then I'll merge those 2 layers so that whenever I'm doing the shading later on with the painting, that it will kind of blend them a little bit more. So it'll look like a print more than it would otherwise. But yeah, that's the kind of idea of that, more or less. I don't want to have too much preamble here, because there was about a full 6 minutes at the end of that, at the end of the last recording, where I was basically introducing the elements that I'm going to be going over here. So there's no real reason for me to really go over them much more. But yeah, I think there was something that I wanted to mention. Yeah, I'm thinking about her skin tone here. Her skin tone, I think, sometimes it's quite pale in some of this art, and sometimes she's got a bit of a fuller complexion, so I might kind of try and skew it halfway. Also trying to figure out what color to make her lips is kind of confusing. Sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's kind of a very neutral, kind of natural color. Not sure. I think I'm going to give her a bit of a kind of a fuller complexion. I'm going to go for something kind of pale, but also kind of a bit more kind of, yeah, full in terms of complexion. The lips, I'm probably going to have to be pink. I think most of these colors I'm going to try and make them quite poppy, especially the hair and the leggings, because they're obviously the brightest colors, so I'm going to try and make these colors kind of pop, unlike with Ryu and Batman, where I was using very kind of dull colors. Here I'm going to try and make these a little bit more poppy, because the color palette that I'm going to go for here in terms of my gradient maps is going to be a very green and purple one, because I mean that's naturally those are the kind of colors that are going on here, so that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm not sure fully quite yet what I'm going to do with the background. I might throw in a background color during this whenever I'm speeding it up, because that'll be happening in about a few moments. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do for a background color. I'm thinking maybe just a dark purple, something like that. Maybe that'll work. I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, It's time for the colours. Time to do these colours, because otherwise I'm going to be here all day if I don't start doing them now. Anyways. Okay, so that is our colours done. I did that little bit of print on the leggings. It was a bit of a pain because the bats do not have a normal shape to them. I also kind of corrected the background colour. I found something which I'm a little bit more keen on. I'm not too sure whether or not I'm going to change the background colour again or if I'm going to keep it as this. We will see. I'm going to be going with slightly more intense painted shading here. Normally I go with 70% on this layer here, the layer which I put over each of them. I normally go with 70%, but this time I'm going with 75%. So it will be a little bit more intense than the last few. And what I'm going to be doing is because ordinarily what I would do would be I would usually get kind of maybe a darker color, obviously the darker color, the lighter color, and then I would skew them towards the colors that I want. So usually that is purple for the darkest and yellow for the lightest. So for example, I would take her skin color and then I would make it a little bit redder and darker, and then that would be the darker shade, and then I would get the same tone of skin and then I would make it slightly yellower, and that would be how I would shade it. Normally, more or less. This time, because what I want to do is I want to go for a kind of a fun, spooky lighting, and also because her hair is green, and green, for one reason or another, is always the color that gets really washed out by gradient maps. Generally speaking, I think it's because there's so many different shades of green. There's more shades of green than any color, if memory serves. I could be wrong on that, but with green in particular, it is a case of where green is very, very prone to getting washed out by gradient maps, by shading, by one thing or another. I've not really done much with the painted shading recently which would showcase this on greens, but you would otherwise see it on the hair. But what I'm going to do this time is because, again, as I say, I'm going for the kind of the spooky fun lighting. Our lightest color is going to be green, and then our darkest color is going to be purple. So we're going to be sticking mostly to her colors. But yeah, the darker color, the darker shade is going to be purple on most things, and then the lighter shade is going to be green. So there's going to be this kind of like fun, spooky two-tone green-purple kind of EC Comics kind of look to things. With that is what I'm going for, at least. And those are going to be the kind of the colors which I'm aiming for. Dog barking. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. Is the slightly greener on things. And again, green is going to be part of our gradient map later, so we shouldn't have to worry about the greens getting completely washed out. So, is there anything else I need to go over? I don't think so. The painting might take a little while. We're already an hour into this, and this is the wrap-up part of things. But yeah, I'm just thinking to myself, is there any other little bits that I need to go over? Yeah, like the black that I picked here is slightly purple because that's generally how it looks in a lot of things. And again, we're also going for purple tones on a lot of this stuff, purple and green tones. So a lot of this stuff is going to become very, very purpley later on. So it makes sense to have the black be a kind of a purpley color already. It just makes my life easier. Something which I noticed is that I don't remember why exactly I gave her fingernails, long fingernails. I don't exactly remember why I did that, because in none of this art does she really have fingernails. It's normally just kind of normal fingernails, they're not like painted or anything. But I guess I did it. I matched it to the lip color, so that's kind of normally what you're supposed to do, I think. But yeah, that's kind of really the only weird little bits that I did there. That's the only thing which I think is like an active diversion in any way. I mean, I explained in the earlier part of the video that the hair being pulled over, it normally should fall this way, but it's being lifted that way, so it's not falling over her shoulder. So, because you can see here, it is falling that way. So, that's the thing. That's how that's falling there. But, yeah. So yeah, as I say, I'm going to be doing kind of purpley shades. Whoops. I'm going to be doing kind of purpley shades on the darks and greenish shades on the lights. And we'll see how this turns out. I might change my mind on that. It might look really bad. But I think it's going to look weird. And that's kind of what I'm going for here. So we'll see how it turns out. Anyways, I'll do this painting and then I'll be back. Okay, so that is our painted shading done. So we still got to do the detailed shading, which shouldn't take very long, I think. We're already 2 hours into this. What's another hour? I would prefer it didn't take another hour. But yeah, we're going to go for maybe a sweeter kind of purple. By sweeter, I just mean closer to red. And then in terms of our green, we're going to want a light, bright green. Again, I feel like our color palette is coming across more or less. I think the idea is there, kinda. But yeah, so we're dealing in this now, in this last part. I think I need to make the background bright. I think I need to maybe do that. I don't know if maybe should the background be purple? Should the background be green? I don't want the hair to blend into the background though. I feel like the hair should definitely stand out. I think we definitely want purple. But we might want a brighter colour. We might want it to actually be pink. I think I'll decide upon this after I'm done with these. This needs to be darker. But yeah, in the interest of time, because it is starting to get dark, I'm just going to start doing this, and then I'll be back once I'm done. I will probably lump in the light line with this. I'll maybe change the background, and then I'll just do the bats and the gradient maps and everything at the very end, and that'll be us. Yeah. Okay, so that is our colors and shading and everything done. So I decided about halfway through there, I'll demonstrate this in a minute after I've got my bat brush. After I find it, that is. Jesus, there's a lot of these. Alright, here we go. I think we're going to want to use the big one this time. But yeah, so what I did was I changed, because obviously you can see that these layers look very different now. So what I did was I went into the color layer and I changed, because these are the clipped layers here. These ones are what do you call them? They're the painted shading layers, because I did one for each thing, each color. And so what I did was I went in and say for pink, because I felt like this doesn't quite look right. I changed the layer type. I changed it to be a vivid light layer, which obviously changes how it looks. This is how it looked on normal. Quite dull. I don't really like it. It's washed out a little too much. So I set it to vivid light, which kind of obviously changes the way that the layer looks. So this is only on the painted layer, and so it brings back out the print, because I don't want the print to just be completely lost. Because whenever it's on a normal layer, you can barely see it. It's like practically invisible. So I decided to put it down to a vivid light, and I did something similar on the black. I changed the black to be a hard light, so that the painted shading is a lot softer. Well, the black or the darker part of the painted shading is a lot darker, and the lighter part of it is a little duller. So that kind of changes the way that these things look a little bit. Did something similar with the dark pink. I set this to be linear light, so it's a little bit more. It kind of brings out the deeper parts of this a little bit more, and with the black, I mean, let me demonstrate with the hard light. It's a little too washed out, I think, with the green, mostly on the boots, and I don't want to have to go back in and change it, so I changed it to hard light. This is kind of a quick fix for some of the problems that can arise as you're going. For me, at least, that's what I use it for, as a kind of a thing of where I'm like, I don't want to have to go back in and repaint this. So I changed the layer type as a bit of a quick fix. It's not a perfect solution, but it looks a little better than nothing. I also changed the background to be a little pinker. I think I'm probably just going to do the same trick I do with Batman, of where I have the background be a different level of texture. I'll do 2 textures again, I think, is how I'm feeling on this. So maybe I'll zoom it out to this amount, and then we're going to do something like that. That I think works for what we want, more or less. They're kind of flying in, coming in like that, and then there's a little bit of a flow to it. Again, I completely forgot, even though I checked over the footage, it was such a minor thing. The flow was supposed to be the purpose of this. So yeah, I guess things flowed within reason. What I'm going to do, actually, for the background, is I'm going to put a very pale, maybe not quite that pale green section in the background. We'll see how this works. I'm going to do it as a gradient. I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to maybe just do it over and then I'll merge it back in if that works. No, we're not doing that. That doesn't look good. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the gradient maps now. So yeah, actually I should sign it first, shouldn't I? We'll zoom back in. I guess I'm just going to stick with the black signature for the most part on these, because I suppose that makes the most sense for the Halloween themed ones, because yes, I did once again forget that that's kind of what these are supposed to be. So Morrigan is the second of our more Halloween themed ones. That is not very good as a signature. It's also in a bad position, so let me move it to just the corner. That works. And yeah, we'll do the black signature for these. That is a bit of a big signature, but oh well. That's what we're rolling with. Right, so now it's gradient map time. Right, let me see. First gradient map. We're going to want to go for our darkest color as purple. Go for something like that, something very deep purple. We want this to be dark. Pretty dark is what we're going for here, I would say. So even the green, it's kind of a little bit of a lower green than what we would normally be going for. So this we're going to want blue as our mid-range color, maybe even a purpley blue. Maybe not quite that dark. Right, this should give us the kind of tone that I'm looking for. Maybe make this green a little deeper, and a proxy, this blue, a little darker. Hell, I might even do this, and then this can be maybe more of a blue like that, maybe even into a green. Bring this down a touch. Ah, hell, who cares? We're not going to be using this as is, so make that properly green. That's then blue, and it's a little lower, maybe even a little lower than that, because we do want this to still be dark. I can make this one a little darker. So right, that should flow in the way that we want. Again, I'm using that word a lot now that I remember that's what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, on an overlay, that's a little much. We're going to go for soft light. I don't know why I always check the overlay. I used to do these things with an overlay layer, but I don't really do that anymore. So we're going to go with 60% on the soft light as per usual. It's still pretty intense, like let's see. Without it, yeah, it does like lower a lot of the colors in certain ways. But yeah, we need to remember that the texture, whenever I put that on, will make things a lot darker, or brighter I mean to say. So the luminosity will return some of our colors that we lost, but we're going to be turning it down to 20%. It's a little higher than I might normally put it. And then I'm going to maybe have the color burn, which is going to be the next one we do. I'm going to maybe have the color burn be a little lighter, or a little higher than normal, maybe about 10%. So that's like quite dark, and it kind of really brings out some of those greens. Right, so next I need to grab the texture. So let me have a look. Grab my texture, and then the texture should reasonably lighten things a little bit, in theory anyways. Might not. Might not lighten them quite enough. Well, I mean, obviously it's going to lighten them here, but we'll see whenever I put it on as an overlay. And then I lower this to 15%. We don't want it to be that high overall. Let me have a look at a couple of things here, yeah. So, texture is obviously quite intense here, even though it's pretty low on the percentile. So how's it looking on the character? It's not super visible. It's kind of visible on the black here. The black is so dark that you're not really going to see it very much. So on the background I'm going to do a duplicate of this. I'm going to pull this down, put it just above that, and then I do the same thing we did on the Batman one, same little trick, flip it, place it. I'm going to raise the percentage to 40%. Now the Batman one, you couldn't see it quite as much as you can here. The fact of having two textures on, what that does for me here is it obviously lightens up the background and gives the background a little bit more going on than it otherwise would have. But yeah, so yeah, the point of it, because obviously this texture goes over everything, I'm not just applying it to the character alone. It obviously applies to the background as well, but whenever I apply the second texture to exclusively the background, that kind of just brightens up the background a little bit, and it doesn't have the adverse effect of making like these weird kind of even deeper blotches appear on the character, because obviously the texture has blotches on it. That's kind of why I use it, because it adds a nice little bit of dispersion to some of the colors and things like that. But yeah, the big problem being that if you have too much of these things going on, it will just kind of really wash it out in ways that you don't want. But yeah, I think that is us. That was a long one. This is a 3-hour recording, the second part, so this is nearly as long as the Ryu one. Not quite as long. Still 6 hours though. I can only hope that the next character will not be as long, but I know what the next character is, so I know it's not going to be any quicker. The next character is not going to be any quicker. I have to draw fire in the next one. But yeah, that's one which I haven't really gone over in any of these episodes, is fire, drawing fire. I've gone over it briefly once before, but yeah, drawing fire is fun. Problem is, it's very complicated, so if you want to know more about that, that'll actually be a topic next time. This time I didn't really have a topic, other than flow, which I remembered within the last 5 minutes of this video. So yeah, I touched on it briefly in the beginning, whenever I talked about the kind of the flow of the figure, of kind of having things taper along in a way that kind of makes the pose look kind of natural, but also it flows in an interesting way, in a way that kind of makes you slowly bring your eyes across it. This is the thing, whenever you have like intense flow, like maybe like the bats here, that's an intense kind of perspective flow, that causes you to kind of look across it in a kind of a quick way. You kind of read it as slow and then fast, because you don't need to look at it as much because it's all big here. So for example, it's like having the foreshortening of a character's hand being really close to the camera and then everything else is really far back. You're going to read it from here over to here, and that will then flow through, and you obviously don't need to pay as much attention to the stuff that's really close because it's big, so there's not as much detail to read whenever it's that close to the camera, if that makes any sense. But here it's kind of that same thing, of where the character is all more or less on the same plane. There's little bits which poke out like the hand, little bits which poke back like the other hand, and this piece of hair. But yeah, and this knee kind of pokes forward and stuff like that. So it flows in that way, of where there's little bits that kind of come out and come in and all this stuff. So you do get little bits of that, of the kind of flow changing, and you read it in a slightly different way. But yeah, that's kind of more or less what I wanted to talk about with that, I think. Again, I didn't necessarily pick that as a topic. I kind of made that one up as I was going along. But I had some things to say about it in the end, if only briefly. So yeah, With all that said, I think that is us. I think that is another art video in the bag. But yeah, as I say, next time is going to be a slightly more difficult one. I'm not going to spoil it. But yeah, it will take me a little while. Yeah, we're getting towards... Well, this is the second of 4 Halloween-themed drawings. So, yeah. Next one's not going to be easy, and then the last one will hopefully be a little easier. I plan it to be a little easier, but who knows? Because life is cruel like that. So anyways, I will do the outro and then I will leave you. So, if you like the video, do whatever you normally do, whether it be liking or not. I would of course prefer if you liked it, but I can get over it if you don't. If you want to subscribe, it's the same deal. You know where the button is. You've probably watched a YouTube video before. So, if you want to do it, go for it. If you would prefer not to, for whatever reason, that's fine. And yeah, if you choose to watch the next video, I will see you next time. But with all that said, that is us. So, I will say goodbye, and then I will leave you. So, bye-bye.